With plenty of question marks surrounding the Toronto Raptors moving forward, there's plenty of room for intrigue around this roster and around the players on it heading into next season. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What's up, everybody? It's JJ Buckets. You've seen the title of the video, you've heard what I've said, so obviously that's what we're doing today. Yeah, we're going to talk about the top 3 most intriguing Raptors heading into next year. But before we do, usual drill, just make sure you're leaving a like on the video. Helps the algorithm out a ton. I really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel as well if you're new here. Plus, if you plan on doing irresponsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below. First one's gonna be obvious, but one that needs to be said. It is Scottie Barnes. We are now heading into year 3 of the Scottie Barnes experiment. Year 1, a tremendous success, right? Rookie of the year. Year 2, a little bit of a letdown. Although, I do think Scottie Barnes' struggles from last season and all that stuff are a bit overblown. Like, it seems for a lot of people, for whatever reason, mostly outside of Raptors circles, but even to some extent a little bit in Raptors circles, a lot of people have just soured on Scottie Barnes, as a prospect, as a future, potential star player, whatever else, because of last season. And it's like, for some reason, they're acting like, he's the only sophomore to ever struggle, and they just don't expect him to bounce back whatsoever, which is really weird. I mean, hell, in recent memory, I could think of Jason Tatum, right? Like, somebody like that just looked bad in their sophomore run, in their sophomore season, and now, Jason Tatum's like a top 10 player in the NBA, so... basically my point with that being is just sophomore slumps definitely happen, and it definitely even happens to the best of players. Now, am I saying that Scottie Barnes is going to be, on the level of a Jason Tatum? I mean, in my wildest dreams, hopefully, yeah, absolutely. But regardless, year 3 of the Scottie Barnes experience is going to be exciting, right? Because you've got Darko in there. Darko is going to be somebody that prioritizes a fluid offense, a lot of ball movement, a lot of, healthy passing and all that stuff. And it's a system, quite frankly, that I'm very excited to see Scottie Barnes in. I think he's going to get a chance to, utilize his passing abilities so much more in this offensive scheme than, he got a chance to last season with Nick Nurse in the role that he was in there. And I think it'll be really interesting what they do with Scottie Barnes this year, quite frankly, for a plethora of reasons. Like, are they planning to roll out the starting lineup where Barnes is the de facto point guard? That'll be interesting to see. Or is Dennis Schroeder going to be starting and is Scottie Barnes going to be somewhere slotted in at the 3 or the 4? Like, there's plenty of questions, I think, surrounding Barnes and surrounding, where he fits in on this roster and what kind of role he has next season. Because, I mean, is this the year that they finally say, to some extent, it's like, here, the keys are in your hands, drive? I mean, obviously, you still got Pascal there, and for the most part, it seems like Pascal is still here now. I mean, it doesn't look like a lot of teams are going to be jumping on that trade, like right this second, despite all of the rumors, things are standing pat. So Pascal is still there, right? But that number 2 vacancy behind Pascal is going to be filled by either, Scottie Barnes or OG Anunoby, I think, depending on the given night. And yeah, that could really potentially jumpstart a breakout season from Scottie Barnes, or quite frankly from OG Anunoby. But regardless, Scottie Barnes will get his moments and will get his chance to shine this year. And I think the big things, obviously, to look out for are, we know he's a great passer, but how does he look in a bigger role where he gets to use that passing more? How does his defense look coming back, right? Like, we've seen the buzz about, Scottie Barnes wanting to be an all-defensive player, right? Like, great. How does that translate over? Like, where are we in terms of that? On top of that stuff, where is he as a scorer, right? That's going to be a big one as well, because obviously passing is something that's made a lot easier when you're a scoring threat and when you're a major scoring threat. So if Scottie Barnes can come into the season as a major scoring threat, in particular if he can expand his range out beyond the 3-point line effectively, I think that's going to be huge for his game, and that'll be probably one of the more interesting developments to follow. So a lot of questions about Scottie Barnes in this upcoming season, a lot of things that if answered positively, are gonna be so intriguing and so exciting to see, and that's quite literally the point of this video. So yeah, Scottie Barnes is absolutely on this list. And I briefly touched upon him in the last section, so let me just make him the next player here. So OG Anunoby is definitely one of the top 3 most interesting Raptors to watch moving into next season. Now I know it's kind of like a running gag at this point to, you know, predict OG Anunoby breakout seasons, right? Like, how many years has it been that Raptors fans have been doing that, right? But I mean, like, look, OG's a beloved player amongst Raptors fans, so I understand why that conversation happens every offseason. And I also understand that while some people, a lot of people, are probably sick of having that conversation, this year it might actually be legitimately the most interesting time to have it, right? Like I talked about in the last section, hey, that number 2 vacancy behind Pascal Siakam is gonna be open, right? And in terms of overall touches, you might argue that Scottie Barnes, you know, fills that number 2 slot. You know, in terms of having the opportunity to be a facilitator, to be a playmaker, and obviously to be a scorer as well to some extent. But if you're talking just pure scoring wise, in terms of who fills that number 2 vacancy behind Pascal Siakam, it might be OG Anunoby, right? So we know OG has been sitting there reportedly clamoring for a bigger role behind the scenes, and yeah, he's gonna get his opportunity. He's definitely gonna get his chance this season. And what does he look like in it? Are we gonna get a situation like Mikal Bridges, right? Somebody that's been stuck in that role player mold for, you know, ages now and has maybe outgrown it and has his opportunity here and suddenly makes a good jump in terms of production. And it's funny that, you know, the easy comparison is obviously going to be Mikal Bridges, and Mikal Bridges actually recently just had a podcast. I forget with who, but he was doing a podcast recently where he was talking about OG Anunoby, and he was talking about the fact that, you know, he sees him as this guy that's, you know, above that 3-and-D caliber of, you know, basketball and role and such at this point. So we will get a chance to see if that's the case. Again, we know with OG, the questions have always been about his self-creation and his handle. And those are the 2 things that really need to come together, because in a lot of other regards, like, OG is there and then some, right? Like, OG is a capable perimeter shooter. He shoots in the high 30s every year, right? We know he's one of the best defenders in the league. Quite frankly, if it wasn't for the stupid position designations, he should have been all defensive first team last year, but we'll take the all defensive second team nod after him getting snubbed for so many years. And we know he's even capable as a scorer. I think the big things that we're gonna want to see, you know, as Raptors fans, and obviously even the coaching staff, the executives, whatever you want to talk about, you're going to want to see the polished handle, because the polished handle is going to lead to an expanded scoring game, an opportunity, you know, to be, for example, the pick and roll handler and create, you know, playmaking chances for others around you, and obviously again, scoring touches for yourself. Like, you are going to want to see jumps in certain regards, and if you don't get them, obviously OG is in his player option year, so essentially his contract year, where at the end of the season he can opt out, and if things don't fall into place for him, I mean, look, a lot of things can change about this Raptors team, and I'm not going to sit here and act like he can't be one of them, but it'll be interesting to see. Again, I'm full on here rooting for the inevitable OG Anunoby breakout season that people have been talking about for years and years and years and years. Again, I know it's been a bit of a repetitive track in that case, but if there was ever going to be a year, it would be this one. It would definitely be this one. Now, there's a lot of names that you can put into this number 3 spot. If you want to give it to somebody like Gary Trent Jr., I would totally understand. That's a very worthy inclusion. I also think somebody like Precious Achiuwa would be an interesting inclusion at this point, right? Like, I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about Precious Achiuwa because he had a down year last year, and I really don't feel like it's time to give up on him just yet by any means after that season. So I think that's another name that's really worth monitoring, really worth watching, really worth being intrigued about, right? But the one that I'm gonna go with personally for the number 3 spot, and again, comment below if you have somebody different, totally fair, it's gonna be Gradey Dick. I think the sooner Gradey Dick can make that jump, and adjustment to NBA caliber defenses and NBA level of gameplay, I think the easier the lives of all the Raptors are going to be, right? Again, I've beat this dead horse here on the channel for a good bit, or at least to me it feels like it, but Gradey Dick was arguably the best shooter in the draft. The Raptors were a terrible shooting team last year. So if this kid gets comfortable quickly, right? Like if he adjusts to the NBA game relatively quickly, you now have a chance and you have every opportunity and you have every excuse to give this guy more and more minutes to space out the floor for the Raptors, you know, to give your Scottie Barneses, your Pascal Siakams, your OG Anunobys the driving lanes, the opportunities, you know, to see easier paths to the basket by having Gradey Dick out there on the perimeter, you know, threatening that three-point shot. You now suddenly, again, I cannot stress enough how much smoother offenses flow when you have good perimeter shooters, right? And you have opportunities to roll out lineups that are going to have, you know, Gradey Dick in them, you know, along with like Gary Trent Jr. potentially, and OG Anunoby on the court at the same time, and give somebody like a Pascal Siakam or a Scottie Barnes the chance to be on the floor with that, and the chance to see that healthy spread in the middle of the floor. And now suddenly, you know, they're plowing to the basket, and now, you know, the driving kick game is open, or hell, their own potential finishing ability is open. You know, they can draw fouls easier that way by having that open space and putting defenders in positions that would make them vulnerable. So again, the quicker you can roll out Gradey Dick there as a legitimate threat will be a game changer, quite frankly, a massive game changer for the Raptors. And again, I think he has the game that's going to translate over to the NBA quickly, but there's definitely going to be at least a little bit of an adjustment period in terms of just him getting up to speed with the NBA level of athletes defensively. So hopefully that adjustment period's like a quarter of a season. But realistically, I think one way or another, like, this is a guy you're monitoring and following this season, and I think it's very fair to have expectations on him like, you know, an all-NBA rookie second team. I think that's super fair, and I think that would be super exciting to see. But yeah, Gradey Dick, definitely my third name here. And that does it for me. What do you folks think? Which Raptors are worth watching? Obviously, this is a completely subjective topic and list and everything, so comment below, give me your opinions on who you really think is worth monitoring in this upcoming season and which Raptors you're paying the closest attention to, right? Other than that, folks, usual drill, as always at the end of this video, if you haven't done so already, just hit that like button. I would hope you enjoyed the video if you're still watching, so yeah, just smash that button. Just smash it. Smash it like... Ayo, I had such a bad joke there. But you know what? I'm gonna say it anyways. Smash it like it's one last chance with that ex-girlfriend that you really loved. Or ex-boyfriend that you really loved. Oh, awful, awful, awful. I really hope nobody's watching these videos at this point anyways. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And yeah, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a pleasure. And I will see everybody next time.